Good morning and welcome to Coffee with Bob. It was 50 years ago that a person jumped over a barrier and damaged Michelangelo's sculpture of the Pietà in St. Peter's Basilica. The man was named Laszlo Toth, and he was a geologist. He had mental issues. And that day he jumped over a balcony barrier and he had a hammer and he struck several blows and he knocked off the left arm and hand of Mary in the sculpture and then attacked her face and knocked off her nose, and it was smashed into several pieces, knocked off part of her eyelid, and there were 100 pieces scattered across the floor. And he ended up being apprehended. He wasn't taken to trial. They understood that he obviously had mental issues, and he was put in a mental hospital for a while, and then he would go on and live out his life in relative peace, yet kind of privacy. But as for the Pietà, they were very concerned how to put her back together again and to either leave the damage marks seen or to repair her in such a way that they wouldn't be seen. Many times they leave the cracks visible intentionally as part of the history of that sculpture, but the team that got together to really discuss the repair of the Pietà understood that this was the sculpture really like no other, and so they made the decision to do the repair so that there would be, as much as they were able, the repair would show no marks of the attack. Well, they gathered up all the pieces and painstakingly they worked to put the sculpture back together again. They had kind of a lab set up right around the Pietà in its original space so they wouldn't have to risk moving it. And some of the pieces were so tiny, they used an invisible glue and a powder made from the same marble so that the seams would be, invisible once they were finished. A couple things that I loved that kind of showed just the interesting nature of the repair. One of the pieces was identified as the eyelid of Mary, and they rejoiced over that. That was a great celebration that the original eyelid was able to be found. And throughout the repair, they received a letter from the United States. Apparently, a tourist had been there on the day of the attack and picked up one of the fragments and then felt guilty about holding on to it and mailed it back anonymously to St. Peter's Basilica. And so you had all these different people and their efforts and their artistry all come together, and they were able to repair the statue. Once they had all of the original pieces back in place, they were able to fill in the places that were still gaps that they couldn't find the piece to fit. They had taken a mold of the sculpture and they were able to fabricate pieces to fit those spots. And so this great kind of orchestration of all this work to put the sculpture back together again, because they understood how important it was in the history of the church, for the sake of the art world, but also how much inspiration it brings to people. Millions of people go to visit it every year. And thank goodness they were able to repair her in such a way. I hope someday you get to go see the Pietà. As you know, on our most recent trip, we weren't able to see her, And so when I go back, I'll be sure to look for any of those repair lines. But most of all, I'll be enjoying the inspiration of the sculpture itself. I hope you have a great day.